Hey, friends. Welcome to the fifth episode of the Crafting for Profit Live podcast. We are so excited that all of you are joining us today. Today's episode is about unveiling the truth behind craft business myths. So, we feel like there are a lot of things that we hear and they aren't actually true. So, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about some of those myths. And if you have any questions and you're watching this live, please feel free to leave those in the comments. We would be happy to answer anything that is on topic. If it's off topic, you can leave it there, but we also have a form down in the description where you can leave us questions that we can answer on a later episode.
And if you want to help us out, be sure to rate and review the podcast on whatever podcast platform you are listening on. If you're on YouTube, comments, thumbs up, that type of thing also help us out. And then if you have crafty friends that also want to start or grow their handmade business, be sure to share this episode or the podcast with them. And now for our guest speaker today, it's Jamela Payne with Color Me Crafty, and I'm going to let Jamela introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. I am Jamela Payne. I am the blogger at Color Me Crafty, and I started a craft business in 2017 after I decided I didn't want to bartend anymore. I just kind of quit my job. I didn't have any savings. It was terrifying, but I made it happen.
That's awesome. I didn't know that about you, actually.
I know, I'm shocked. I'm totally that's like the opposite of my story. I'm the one that had to save up for years before I was too scared to quit.
Oh, I was terrified. I had some friends kind of encouraging me, like, you're good at this. You can do this, So I did it. It was hard. It was hard, to leave what you feel like is security to go into something that is not a whole lot. Like working for someone else, I knew I was going to have a paycheck every week. But going into business for myself, you don't necessarily know that.
It's definitely nerve-wracking when you finally make that full leap.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a couple myths today, and we're going to talk through them. And the first one is you need to sell anything and everything to be successful. So we hear this quite a bit, like, I need to have a huge shop full of all the things before I'm even going to promote my shop at all, or I need to make a wide variety of projects, so that I appeal to everybody. So how did you decide what you were going to make and what you're going to sell so that you could be successful?
So I was already crafting t-shirts and tumblers. I was doing the epoxy tumblers at the time, but t-shirts were my jam. So that's what I was doing mostly. I was doing a lot of glitter mom sport shirts. And when I decided to go into business for myself, I decided to try and do it without spending money that I didn't have. So I was working with what I had in my craft room, and it was a lot of glitter and a lot of t-shirts. So that's kind of how I decided. But it's overwhelming if you add too much to your plate, just like with anything else, adding too much to your plate becomes overwhelming and nothing gets done.
Yeah, I feel like you also can't become an expert in what you make if you're trying to
Right.
make 1,000 different things, right? But if you're making just t-shirts, especially if you're using one single type of, iron-on or whatever you're using,
Right.
you can really bust through those shirts and you know that each one's going to be perfect versus having to relearn, what you're doing every single time.
Yep. Yep.
I love that your niche was almost like glitter shirts when you started. Like, that's the
It
best niche ever.
was. It was the Caesar glitter, to be exact. I am still obsessed, but the rainbow white, I did a lot with rainbow white glitter.
Okay, so what do we want to move on to myth number? Okay, I did want to mention that, like, Corey and I always talk about that niching down is like very important, especially for a handmade business. Like, because if you're only selling shirts, you can become an expert at shirts, but also your shop doesn't become overwhelming. We talked a little bit about it becoming overwhelmed yourself with making so many things, but can also be overwhelming to whoever's shopping. So if you niche down to that shirts, loving the glitter, you're targeting that glitter loving mom. And I think that's really important, especially when you're starting out.
Yeah. And just starting out, you don't want too many things either, because if you're like me and starting out with $0, then you have to get all these different supplies to complete these orders.
Yeah, I almost feel like even like an online shop, if you just have 5 listings, 10 listings, you can start selling. Like, I don't think you have
Mhm.
to have, I feel like people wait until they have 100 different things to sell and then they get overwhelmed trying to make the listings for 100 different things.
Yeah. And
That's
then
a
not
really
to
good point.
mention orders for 100 different things coming in at one time. Like, it's easy to create an assembly line if your products are consistent.
I think it's
That's
So,
also I think it's also easy to store supplies when
yeah,
you're just making one thing. So
yeah,
if you're making 10 different types of things, you have supplies for 10 different types of projects. And then you're trying to store all of those in whatever craft space you have. But if you're working, say you're making t-shirts, you have storage for your t-shirts, you've got storage for your vinyl, you've got your Cricut, you got your heat press or whatever you've got, and you're good to go without
yeah,
having a whole bunch of wood signs or laser cutters or like all this
yeah.
other stuff.
And vinyl makes a whole lot of trash too. So,
That's so true. And you can also buy in bulk. That's another thing
yeah.
too. When you're trying to just sell one thing, it really makes it easier to be like, okay, I know that I'm going to go through this rainbow white glitter
Yeah.
Caesar vinyl. I can buy it, in a much larger quantity and maybe
And
save
that's what
some money.
that was another thing that I did. I always bought like the 5-yard rolls as opposed to what I needed for that order. So I might take, an order and take everything that I made from that order and put it back into buying in bulk. And then the next order, I already have everything I need. So it's all profit.
Yeah, and then if you're making a ton of stuff with, say, the rainbow white, when you get those orders, batching those all together and cutting them
Hmm.
all at once, weeding
Hmm.
them all at once, that becomes super easy. I love batching, by the way. I talk about this in every podcast episode.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready for myth number 2? All
Yeah.
right, so myth number 2 is you need a ton of money to start a craft business. And I feel like Jamila hit on this a little bit, that she
I did.
started her craft business when she had 0 money. So, Jamila, your best advice for, oh, sorry. What was the scariest part of getting started with no money?
Well, for me, quitting my job, making the decision that I was going to invest in myself and stop lining someone else's pockets. That was the scariest part. And the fact that I didn't have anything saved. Like, and at the time I had 3 kids at home. Well, still had 3 kids at home, but I had 2 teenagers and an elementary schooler. And, it's terrifying. And I was a single mom. So, th- not having any money and not having the security of knowing, okay, I work these hours this week, so next week I know this is what my paycheck is going to look like. That was the scariest part.
That's got to be really scary because I mean, when I went full time on my business, I had my husband to fall back on to like,
Yeah,
I
I
knew
have
that
enough.
he was bringing in a paycheck and I was nervous even with that. So I can't
Yeah,
imagine just
I was walking out on faith.
you took some
Yeah.
guts.
I was like, well, if it doesn't work out, I can always go and get another job, serving or bartending or whatever.
I
But it
think that's
worked
a
out.
good
And here
point.
we are. What is it? 7 years later?
I think it's a really good point too. I think sometimes we see things as being final or, but the fact that you had a skill that you could easily, if things didn't work out, that you could easily go back and find another job or find a part-time job.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to think about too. Like, are you, if this doesn't work out, are you going to be able to still stay on your feet? I
Right.
think that's something to consider before maybe making the leap into full-time crafting.
Right.
And so you touched on this a little bit, but starting a craft business with no money, I'm assuming you had to like make or use the machines you already had. So you had to
Yeah.
make things with things you already had, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I've always been a crafter and a hustler. Like I always, had a little side hustle, and it was already my side hustle. So I just went, you know, full force into it. Another thing that I did not do is I did not take deposits, and you could not pay me after I completed the project, because custom orders, you can't resell them. Like I can't take this high school sport mom shirt with your kid's last name on the back and sell it to the next person. Like, it's too final. So we need to finalize payment up front.
That's hard to do, I think, for some people when they're first starting out.
It really is. And my advice is that's not your customer. If they're not okay with paying you for your skill up front, that isn't your customer. If they want to haggle with your prices, that's not your customer. Because, you aren't a Walmart or, this huge factory who has machines, and you know what I'm saying? Like it handmade crafts are a lot more personal.
So
So
did you start like selling online to family and friends? Like, what's your advice there?
I actually started with my profile page, and I have a ton of people. I think I have, like, at the time I probably had 2,500 friends on my personal page, and I was just sharing what I was making. Like, I think I made something for myself. I shared it, and somebody's like, "Hey, can you do this?" Yeah, I can do that. And it was a lot of word of mouth. And then I branched off into the garage sale groups, the marketplace. It wasn't marketplace then. There wasn't a marketplace. But I started sharing in the garage sale groups, and I was getting orders that way. And I did turn down a lot of business because, if I'm going to make this work, I got to make money. And I can't be wasting my time on somebody who doesn't want to pay what I feel my product is worth, because they're going to go to Macy's or wherever the big name store is and buy the top name brand at right now, I don't know, Coach bag for $500, but you can't pay me $30 for a handmade t-shirt that's customized with your name. Like, so
I feel like your particular product, and like when you're customizing things, especially for moms and for schools, I feel like those are two really, really good pieces of a niche.
mhm.
That really works really well for word of mouth as well, because if they're wearing things to, sporting events,
Yes.
or
Yes,
PTA
I
night.
got a lot of orders that way too. Yeah, word of mouth was a huge factor, and I tried. Etsy wasn't huge for me. I did it for a while, and it just word of mouth was my best marketing.
I feel like around here, that niche of like local schools is huge. Like,
Yeah.
people jump on that and do really great because, like, for me, my very small town, I cannot go online and find merch in the colors, the mascot with my name on it, besides a place that's hand making things. So, like, I feel like
Not
that's a
only
huge niche.
that, they're boring. What you get from what the schools are selling is super boring most of the time, which made the glitter very popular.
That makes sense. They're probably using one color of screen printing
Mhm,
and, on the
mhm.
color of the school, and you're just getting like eagles across
Yeah,
the shirt. You're not getting the name, the particular sport, any sort of other
no.
customization, the glitter. You're just getting a plain t-shirt. And so if you can still show your school support, but look way better
But
doing it.
and even with those, it could kind of to go back to that's just not your customer. Like, even with those plain boring shirts, there's sometimes 40, $50. If somebody can pay for those boring shirts, that 40 or $50, they can pay 30 to $40 for your custom shirt.
I do feel like customization is such a great point, and I think we've talked about it a few times here, that, I mean, my name can be spelled you can spell Corey 10 different ways off the top of my
Yeah.
head with C's and different numbers of R's and different ways to say I at the end.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I never had anything personalized. And as an adult, if I want something personalized, I have to make it myself or I have to buy it from
Trust
somebody
me, I
like
completely
Jamela.
understand that. Yep. My name, it's an Arabic name, but there's a million different spellings for it and pronunciations, and I've never seen anything in the store with my name on it.
All right, so let's look at craft myth number 3. And this is one that I feel like is a really important one because I think a lot of people think this and it really stops them before they even start, going down the road of maybe starting a business. And that is that crafting is just a hobby and you can't make money. So, what is your best advice for transitioning from basically a craft hobby into a craft business?
Well, okay, my best advice is probably the niche down. Like figure out what it is you're going to make as a way not to overwhelm yourself. You can make money. What is it? What is the saying? Master of none. What?
Oh, jack of all trades, master of none.
There it is. Yeah. You just can't craft everything. And eventually with you trying to craft everything, something's going to be sloppy. You're going to start getting complaints, from customers. Things just, it's just the way life works. Something's going to go wrong if you have too many things on your plate.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of like the people who spin plates, right? Literally, this is the
Yeah.
metaphor. If the people's like, you're going to start dropping plates, you're juggling
Yep.
too many balls. You are going
Yeah.
to start,
Yep.
and that applies to not just everything that we have to do in a business, but if I'm trying to make 6 very different products or whatever, even that, you're going to start cutting corners, you're going to start getting sloppy. And
Yep.
reviews, especially on sites where you don't have any control over them. Like if
Yep.
you get a bad review on Etsy, it's just there. You can't do
Yep.
anything about it. And so you really need to be putting out a high quality product with every single thing that you make.
So I also feel like when people transition from craft hobby to craft business, they tend not to value their work. And you've talked about this just a little bit. And I know like you are into pricing and everything, so you get this. So how what I feel like people need to learn that their time is valuable, along with just like if you are making a shirt, you can't just charge for the shirt and the glitter vinyl. You need
No.
to get something for you. You need to turn a profit.
Yep.
Like we are crafting for profit. So how do you start valuing your time as a business owner, not just as a hobby crafter?
You need to make sure you're accounting for everything that goes into making that product, from materials to purchasing a design on Etsy, the time it takes to press that design on, any profit margins, overhead, because your machines depreciate, you use printer ink if you're sublimating. So all of those things, and profit margin, overhead, and labor are 3 things that get missed all the time with, pricing products. And that's why people think that they can't make any money because they're forgetting those things. And, they're charging $15 for a shirt. I remember probably a year after I started, someone was, wanted me to make a shirt, and I told them my price, and they're like, oh, well, such and such can do it for $12. Well, you go to such and such, because I can't do it for $12. This is how I feed my family.
Yeah, I think that
And
sometimes, oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's hard to say no to business because it is, money. But I don't want to spend 3 hours on a t-shirt and make $2 off of that order. Like it has to be worth it. If you're going to make it a business, it has to be worth your time. It has to be worth your energy.
I think that's very true. And I think I see a lot of this happening, especially with people who are retired, who they're like, my time, I've only got time, right? Like I've just got time. So I'm going to make things and not worry about charging for my time because they don't have a job or kids at home or any of these other things that they might, not be trading their time for. But I do feel like one that devalues the whole market because then it drops the price on everything and makes people not understand what it actually costs to make something. But then two, it's also devaluing the retiree's time. I mean,
Right.
your time is worth just as much when you're 70 as it is when you're 25.
And people like to take advantage of people with good hearts, because I'm not saying that you can't, give away the occasional thing or do the occasional thing for free. But if you're spending your time creating and your money buying these supplies, you really should be charging for them.
And sometimes I also think it's hard to be bold. Like you were just saying, like if you don't like my prices, that's my price. And sometimes
Hmm.
it's hard for people to say that, especially as a woman, right? So we're like,
Yeah.
well, you want it for 24, I'm charging 30. I could
Yeah.
probably do it, but
But
so it's
that's
hard to be bold.
$6. And by the time you've done that 10 times, you've lost $60.
Yeah, that's
And
a great point.
plus your time, plus the time it took. So yeah.
I wonder if maybe using AI might actually be a great way to craft some responses when
Yeah,
people,
I bet.
obviously
Yeah.
we didn't have that 7 years ago when you started, but I do feel like maybe something like Chat GPT could help, at least give you some language if you're struggling with saying no, especially if it's not in person. So if somebody emails you or messages you and they're like, can you do this for this price? Going through something like Chat GPT can help you get some language around how you might respond
Yeah.
confidently. You don't need to copy and paste, but I find that if I am looking for some good words for something, go to ChatGPT, type in like, "Hey, I need a response for somebody who wants to buy a t-shirt for $22, but I sell them for $30 and I'm not willing to compromise on my price. Can you give me a kind but firm response that I can use to, deny this person's request?"
Right. Saying no came pretty easy for me because I was coming from bartending. And I heard a lot of times, well, I don't know if you're being a jerk or if you're being sarcastic or what. So it was a pretty simple thing for me to turn down business as far as the actual words. What was hard was the fact that I knew I needed the money. But I had to get in my head, if I take this order for this price, I'm not making the money I need. I need to waste my time on something that is going to make me that money.
Yeah, I
Yeah, and
mean, if
when
you're
when they see that quality glitter sports mom shirt
Mhm,
on their
mhm.
friend at the football game, they're gonna come back. That's what needs to be
I
in your mind.
actually have another one that did really well was graduation shirts. The family wants, shirts to wear to the kids' graduation. And you guys know I love my sublimation over glitter. So I would, put the words, the name, and then put one of their senior pictures on there. And people loved it.
You just can't buy that stuff in a store. I cannot walk
Mm-mm.
into Target and find something with my face on it.
Nope. Nope.
All right, so this goes into myth number 4, I feel like. Number 4 is everyone will love my crafts. That's the myth. So we talked a little bit about that's not your customer and finding the right customer. So what is your best advice for determining your ideal customer and finding that audience for your projects?
I would say pay attention to what people are asking you for. If you made one sport mom shirt and then 50 more people are asking you for it, that's probably your target audience.
I think that's really good advice, to be able to look at, gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Not reviews, but basically feedback, like just
Yes,
taking
feedback.
in
Yep.
that feedback, so that you can see like, okay, this is what people are really liking. Because people who
Mhm.
really, really like something will take the time to write a review or to let you know.
Or
People who
tell
don't like
15 other
something,
people. Yeah.
but the people in the
Oh, there.
middle generally don't, right?
Yeah.
So if your things are just average and you're not necessarily getting a lot of good or bad feedback, maybe it's like time to concentrate on the things that are really getting that good feedback.
Right. And bad feedback isn't necessarily bad feedback, but it gives you a gauge on where you need to improve.
Absolutely.
And then you talked a little bit about the glitter sports mom shirt and then doing the graduation shirt. And I also think that's really smart, like expanding sort of within the niche. So
Yeah.
it's a personalized shirt for sports. What else could I personalize a shirt for
Mhm.
in that same like high school age range almost? Because it was sports
Right.
moms, now it's graduation moms.
Yep.
What else do they need? And so thinking about that type of thing, like what else would the same person need? I found this mom. What else does she need?
It was crazy that those couple, few years where, I mean, I was all over town dropping off shirts to the private schools, to the public schools, meeting in parking lots, and it was wild. Like, so like when you find something that you're really good at and people really love, like pay attention because that's your target.
I also feel like your particular target in this case also, and you're talking about like instead of shipping, you're hand delivering things, right? So they're
Mhm.
getting to meet you. Yes, that is some of your time, but maybe that's a trade-off for you, or you include that in your pricing. And
Yeah,
then,
eventually I started adding a few bucks for delivery.
yeah,
If I had if I had to go too far.
yeah. And I think it just creates community, right? I mean,
Mhm.
we talk about this all the time that there's just something really lovely. We talk about it in regards to craft fairs a lot, but it's just the same thing with your particular niche was that you were like creating this community, this high school community of all of these people from all these different schools. I don't know, it just is like, hey, I got that same shirt, but it's like, customized for my school. And I don't know, I feel like it just creates that like bond between
Yeah,
people that we just don't see very much, which I just
right.
love.
And who doesn't love to cheer on their sports kid, right?
It's I would get, people telling me all the time. I saw somebody at the school with a shirt on and I was like, "Jamela made that, right?" And she was like, "Yeah." And so,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was pretty cool.
So I think because of this is number 5, but I feel like because of the way that social media works,
Mhm.
we see a lot of overnight sensations, right? We see a lot of people who go viral and then all of a sudden they have an amazing business. And so that's the way my business is going to go. So let's go back to even before you kind of left your bartending job. Like, tell us about your journey a little bit and how long did it really start to take you to actually make money with your crafts?
Well, so I started selling in about I think 2015, 16. So it took me a year to even think in my mind, okay, I can make this work long term. And then I think it probably even after I quit my job in 2017, it took me another year and a half, 2 years before I was comfortable.
So when did you start crafting? I also want to know that. Like, did you craft from a childhood or did you start crafting later
When
in
I
life?
was 6. So I didn't meet my dad until I was 6. And the same day I met my dad, I met my grandmother. And she taught me how to make friendship bracelets. And from that day on, like the rest is history. I've had I bought my first Cricut, I want to say, in I was probably pregnant still, so maybe 2009. I had the little small one with the cartridges. I can't remember what it was called, but the very first one, and I was scrapbooking then. So I've always crafted. In high school, I made the little seed bead necklaces with the names on them, and I sold them for $1. So crafts always been my thing.
I
So you
feel
were
like we
selling personalized products in high school.
Yep. Yep.
I think
I
that is
needed
a
that a la
consistent theme.
carte.
I think it's a consistent theme that like our guests and both Angie and I don't know, we've always been just makers.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things that like it just continues with you and you get bit by that bug sometimes and it just does
Mhm.
not go away.
Nope.
And I feel like that's important to this because it takes a while to perfect your craft, right? So it
Yeah.
takes a while to perfect like making, creating, using a Cricut machine, cutting vinyl, getting good at it, making sure it stays on the shirt because we all I had that failure when I first started, right? So I feel like that part takes time. So the success part, even for those viral TikTokers, did not happen overnight. They were
No.
crafting for years before that. They had been cutting with their Cricut machine for years before that. And it like appears to us that it happened overnight, like the viral butter shirt. We mentioned this in every episode that there was a viral butter shirt on Instagram. But she was probably perfecting her craft and designing crafts for years. And then that shirt hit and she had success. So
Yeah. She was actually a cookie decorator. And then she
Mhm.
started making a bakery themed shirts. So I mean, I think that it's finding that niche, perfecting it, and just and finding that unique way to make a difference, when in just a sea of things that look the same. Like you said, how do you stand out? You're using glitter. You're making moms look way better than they would in
Right.
just their, plain shirt.
Yeah.
all right. So wrapping this up, our last question for you, Jamela, is what advice do you have for someone thinking about starting a craft business?
Start where you are. Look around your craft room and figure out what you have that you could potentially sell or make to sell and be good at it. And the second thing would be to make sure you're pricing your products properly. Make sure you're not leaving out anything.
I think that pricing your products goes right into that quality. You
Mhm.
can charge more for a quality product. So
Mhm.
we get a lot of people, I think, in some of our Facebook groups that we host that are like, hey, I made this tumbler, but it's kind of ghosted at the top. What could I sell it for? When really that's just practice. That's not for
Yeah.
sale. It might
Yeah.
go in a misfits bin at a craft
Yeah.
fair, that kind of thing, but that's just learning. It's
Right.
not selling. So until you can perfect that product, you probably shouldn't even price it, because
Right.
you want to make sure
Right.
you're pricing basically the best product you can make.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then perfecting before you start selling. So you're not that person that lists a tumbler and sells 50 before they've ever made one tumbler.
Oh
Like
my God.
that happens all the time.
All the time. All the time.
I got a sublimation printer
But
and now
it
I have an order for 50 shirts. Well, maybe you
yeah,
should figure
not
out how to make
it's
shirts
not
first.
even just for crafting though. Like this happens everywhere. I've been seeing a lot of it lately in, some of the groups that I'm in for things that you really should not be charging for if you don't know what you're doing.
Okay, so do we want? I'm going to do a last call. First of all, for the YouTube Live. If you're joining us for YouTube Live, you can ask any last minute questions in the comment section. We are going to talk about those in a second and pull some of your questions. And then Jamela has an offer for you. So she has a free masterclass called Profit First for Crafters. And so I'm going to let Jamela talk about that a little bit. And I'm going to put the link up. It is jamelapayne.com/profit-first-master-class. And that will be in the podcast notes as well as the YouTube description. So I'm going to let Jamela talk about that.
So profit first is, I guess, a mindset change. In most businesses, you think about your profit as whatever is left after your expenses are spent or are paid. And with profit first, you just kind of reverse that, and it creates a mindset, or I can't think of the word that I'm trying to say. Your profit comes out first and your expenses from everything else. And the reason why this works is it makes you smarter as far as your expenses go, because this is all you have left for those expenses and you're getting paid regardless. I don't know if I explained that well or not.
So Jamela and I love Profit First. We talk about it quite a bit. We don't know many other people who use this method, but we want everybody to, because it has been an absolute game changer in my business for the last year. So I have a profit account and I don't touch it. I touch it 4 times a year, every quarter.
Yeah.
And that money just sits in there and grows. And it's just amazing to not feel like profits whatever is left over. It's actually there. It grows every time. I take half of it out every quarter and I use it on whatever I need to do. Sometimes I put it back in the business. Sometimes I pay off debt. Sometimes my husband and I go out to a nice dinner, whatever it is. And I keep half of it in there. So then the next time when I'm making money, then I have even more in my profit account. It's just like watching that grow over the last year has been magical.
So basically, you have a pot for everything. There's a pot for your expenses, a pot for your profit, a pot for your pay. a pot for however you want to separate it, and nothing comes out of the wrong pot. So you can kind of see where everything is going, and it makes you make smarter decisions as far as your small business finances. That's what I was trying to get at before.
It's also really good because so I have a pot for payroll because I have staff. I have a pot for taxes because I have to
Yep.
pay taxes. And I don't touch those unless they're going to the things they're going to. And
I
that
actually
means,
just
no, go ahead.
started a retirement pot.
Yep, I have a retirement pot. I just started it a couple months ago, and we, I think in your class you talk about the banking system that we both use.
Mhm.
It's through a bank called Relay Bank. It's set up for profit first, so it makes it really easy. I don't know. Take Jamela's class. I am not a numbers person. I have advanced degrees in English. I mean, like I went as far away from like doing math as I can. So accounting has always been a struggle for me. Like I've probably cried more in my business about accounting than I have about anything else. And last year, I mean, it's been a year. I started it a year ago, and it's like magic for me. I don't know. I'm just going to go on and on about how much I love this system. So if you don't like numbers, or if you're having trouble paying bills, some of your business bills, that kind of thing, it really does help you focus on like, okay, this is the money I have to spend. And I can't spend more than that because I can't touch the
Right,
taxes pot. That goes to taxes.
right,
And I can't touch the retirement pot because that's paying for my bills when I'm old. And
right.
so you really like know what you basically know what you're working with. And I love it.
Yeah, I
I
do
feel
too.
like both of you have tried to talk me into this, and you are like convincing me right now. Like the
Yeah,
wheels are turning
it's
here.
awesome.
It's
It's awesome.
amazing.
It sounds very overwhelming because you have the pots for everything, but Relay Bank makes it super duper duper simple. Like you can see everything on one screen. Like, yeah.
You can transfer stuff between pots
Yep.
seamlessly, like
Yep.
instantly. I don't know.
I
It is
have
absolutely.
mine set up to automate, so everything comes into an incoming account. And then I have percentages set up for it to go into the other pots.
Yeah. Yep. Twice a month, it just goes boop, 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 boop into all of its little pots, like by percentage without me having to do anything.
Yep.
It's amazing. Keep
It
clicking
is.
that QR code, guys, because I'm like so
Yes. So
obsessed.
if you're watching on YouTube, I put a QR code up, and I can never get the point right, but up here somewhere there's going to be a QR code, and you can scan that, and it's a free masterclass. So jump in, learn all of Jamela's secrets, and decide if it's right for you. All right,
I
so I'm
do
going to
have
start oh, go ahead.
I have something else if you guys are okay with me mentioning it.
Oh, go ahead.
So, Small Business Bestie is now in the App Store. It is a mobile app, and you can get it on iOS or Android. And what Small Business Bestie is it's a pricing app and inventory tracking. So you can track all of your inventory inside the app, and you can price out all of your products inside the app. And it does come with a free 3-day trial.
Where can they find that?
in the Apple App Store. It's only for mobile right now for phones. So in the Apple App Store or Google Play.
Okay. And it's called Small Business Bestie. And I think Crystal and
Yep.
Jen might both be on here if you want to type that in the comment section, and we can alter the YouTube description after this.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay. So I'm going to start pulling a few of the questions. We had several questions about how do you decide what type of craft products to sell? Like what's your method for that? So any advice on deciding what type of crafts to sell?
Just what you're the master, like what you're good at, what people are asking you for. Your customers are going to tell you what you're good at. Like if you have 100 people asking you for glitter t-shirts and nobody asking you for these tumblers you're pushing, then the t-shirts are your thing.
I always tell people what you're passionate about and what you can also make a lot of if you get popular. So those are the two criteria I always say.
Yeah.
I think we talked about finding a niche, but I also feel like putting your own spin on things, because I think there's a lot of people out there, say, making true crime sublimation tumblers. I swear at the last craft fair I was at, there were 3 booths that had weird murdery tumblers that were about like true crime or crime shows, which is hilarious because I mean, people love that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
But there was nothing
But
setting
you
those
want
3
yeah.
vendors apart. So that at that point, it was just price, and nobody wants to compete on price, right? It sucks to compete on price. So finding a way to add value or to do your own designs or whatever it is, find a way to put your own spin on something so that you're not just directly competing only on price with the people around you.
And I think that's kind of what set me aside besides the glitter is that I taught myself how to create my own files. So I wasn't running to Etsy and making or buying a file. I was actually making my own.
I think that's huge. I know it's difficult for people to think about maybe creating their own designs. There are a lot of really good resources out there. And if you really think that that's something that you want to do, I don't know, I think that's a really good way to invest in yourself.
And it's a great way to set yourself aside because you're using what's up here. You might see something for inspiration, but at the end of the day, it's a design that you created, based on your ideas and your thoughts or whatever.
And I think you can also start your like thought process with that ideal customer. So that
Mhm.
sports mom, the high school mom, okay, she wants shirts to wear to her kids' sports thing that are personalized. She wants graduation shirts. Like just start with her and think about her, give her a name. How much income
Mhm.
does she have? Think about her every time. What else does she need that I can add to my shop that this particular person would want? And I feel like that's a good
Right.
way to niche down and also help your thought process a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, maybe she needs a matching sublimation glitter tumbler to go with her shirt,
Yeah.
but it's school themed and it has the logo on it. It's personalized. It has all the things that the shirt has that she loves. And now it's just another iteration of that, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and now it needs to be a 40-ounce tumbler in 2024. Go ahead and show it, Corey. There you go.
I have my 40-ounce tumbler right next to me.
All right, next question. How important is or was branding your business to your success?
So I don't think I ever really, everything was just me. I didn't have a name for my t-shirt business. It was just me. I was Jamela Porter at the time. So everybody knew me specifically by name. Now, I did have my blog already, and I think people knew me more as Jamela as opposed to Color Me Crafty. So I just kind of ran with all of my social handles are my name now, and I still have my blog, Color Me Crafty. But in the beginning, for me, it just wasn't that important. Because I didn't have a job, it was more important to get the things out there and make some money. Having a website was not on my radar. Selling on Etsy was not on my radar because even though it's 20 cents per listing, that's still money coming out of my profit. So I thought it was best to work with what I had and what was free. And that was, excuse me, that was my Facebook page and those garage sale sites and word of mouth. So I didn't even worry about branding in the beginning. Now, though, I have a couple, I guess, different brands for different things in my business. And I still stick with the same, at least colors for any different part of my business so that they see those colors and they know, okay, that's probably Jamela.
Yeah, I think it's helpful too. You have a memorable name, right? There's not like 100 Jamelas running around. If your name is
Right.
Jennifer Smith, this might not be like the best option because who made that? Jennifer Smith.
Right.
Which one?
Right.
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 If you're from my generation, I think I had like 3 Jennifer Smiths just in my high school graduating class. I mean, it was just like a lot of, if you have something unique like a name like that, I think about Jennifer Maker, right? Like her name is so memorable. And so
Right.
it works
Right.
really well. I feel like Angie Holden's name is starting to become, I don't know if people know me because like people will still greet me as like, hey, make stuff. like that's my name if I see them in person. So it's like, I don't think my name as Corey George is as recognizable as some other names. So it might be something to think about as well. If you have a very a name that a lot of people have, you may want to start with a business name.
Yeah.
I almost think that starting how you started. So you started like selling on your personal Facebook. It was almost like your name was your brand in a way, because like does that make sense? Like that's what people recognize. That's what people knew. It was like your name was your brand in the beginning. And like when they saw that glitter sports shirt, Jamela made it. Go to her Facebook page and ask her for one. So that was almost like it was your brand. And then the glitter and high
that's
school
what I was
mascot.
gonna say, like my designs and things. I wish I had grabbed the shirt before I sat down because I still have them all. They last forever. But I think that also became part of my brand, is the style, the way I, my designs and the way I did things.
I think anybody who's making products, the style of your products, the way you photograph your products, the way you name your products, all of that goes into your brand, even if you don't recognize that it's part of your brand.
Yeah. And at a certain point, it's almost like your personal style leaches into your brand a little bit for some people. So it's often your personal style at first, maybe. And then you might grow your branding, like you said, your colors and that type of thing later on. All right. I think I have one more question here. As a crafter for profit and a coordinator of business shows, and now retired, I really struggle with vendors in my shows who are selling their similar items for considerably less than myself. So any advice for those people struggling with pricing on that type of thing?
I would stick to what you're doing. In my experience, I have a whole formula for pricing. So in my experience, when people come in less than that, there are generally some quality issues because they're having to do a whole lot more to make what you're making on one item. I wouldn't look at your neighbor and try to figure out how they're selling things for so much less, because to be honest, it's not your business. Your business is your business. And if it's working for you, then I would just, stick with it.
I think this is also, oh, sorry, go ahead. I interrupted.
If you think that you may be charging too much, I would try to figure out a formula, for that.
I think this is also where like I said before, you can set yourself apart in other ways, whether that's through your own designs, something that you can value add. If you're selling tumblers, maybe you're also selling, little gift card holders that go with them to give as gifts or whatever it is, like just adding a little bit, something to set you apart from the other people and like make it more, like make people want to be able to pay. We're using my words very well all of a sudden. Basically, you want something that will let people, pay more without feeling like they're not getting as good of a deal.
Yeah.
I do like the quality thing, I think is the most important thing for me. Because I feel like when people are paying those handmade prices, they are expecting something bespoke or handmade and for it to be really nice when they get it. And when it's not, those other people are going to lose business, and hopefully you'll gain it because you have the quality product out of the group of the people.
I've had several people go to someone else because they were cheaper and to come back and ask me, can you fix this? No, I can't. But what I can do is charge you what I was going to charge you and make you a new one.
Yes, 100%. I do think it's harder when you're at a craft show and you're sitting there and the person next to you is, they're half the price and their products are going off the table.
It surprises me. The craft shows that I've done, they kind of make you specify what you're selling so that there aren't two crafters with super similar products. Hearing Corey say that, the similarities in the true crime tumblers, and then this question or whatever, like it's really surprising to me because I thought that was something that people did across the board.
Yeah, I mean, if this person is a coordinator of shows, maybe that's something to think about, like try and get a wider variety of people, of sellers.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good idea. We did do a whole episode on craft fair tips and tricks. If you guys want to go back to listen to that episode, we talked about different ways to make yourself stand out at a craft fair. So that's another whole episode on this topic.
If you want to listen to us talk for a whole other hour on craft shows, then there you go.
All
Okay, I
right.
think that's all the questions from the chat, unless you saw another one. So otherwise, we want to thank Jamela for coming on. Thank you so much. And
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I say so. Be sure to follow Jamela on social. We'll have her social links below, and also that app she was talking about, Small Business Bestie. She has a free trial, and you can use it to try out the pricing calculator. See if you like it. Check it out.
All right. So next time in 2 weeks, we are doing an episode specifically on one type of craft. So this will be kind of our first episode where we're talking about a specific craft, and we are talking about making money with sublimation. So Angie and I are both sublimation crafters. So is Jamela. We are going to be talking to Miss Courtney Brickner. So if you know Courtney from the Crafty Brick, you know that that girl is just so full of joy, and we are so excited to have her talk about her sublimation business. That is going to be on YouTube on April 25th, and then the podcast will come out the next Monday on April 29th. You can sign up for a reminder down in the description below in the podcast notes, so that you'll get a newsletter, an email from us with a reminder to watch that. And we are really excited about that episode too.
And just a reminder, share this episode with any crafty friends that want to start or grow their handmade business. If they need to know about these craft business myths, you need to share it with them. And then if you want to help us out, leave any ratings or reviews on your favorite podcast platform. If you're listening on podcast, if you're on our YouTube channels, like and comment, and that helps us. And also subscribe. Both of those are vital to our success, and we really, really appreciate it. So for now, we will see you in 2 weeks for Making Money with Sublimation. See y'all in 2 weeks.